5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
This is the Culture Clash.
Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Pat's breath, do we have a podcast going on tonight? For everybody, first of all, welcome to Culture Clash Live here on the Fandom Podcast Network. And it's been a few weeks, but life's been happening. I've been fighting hurricanes. We've had things going on. Kevin's off somewhere in Australia. I don't know where he's at. We'll address that here later. But we do have a new episode of Culture Clash, and we are continuing our time travel spotlight. Yes, this has been the year of time travel here on Culture Clash, and we've been covering a lot of time travel movies. But this time, we got something a little special. We have dove into television, and one of my all-time favorites, a cult classic, Voyagers, which ran one season from 1982 to 1983. We are going to take our Omnis and figure out if we can figure out what the heck is wrong with this podcast, go back in time and fix it. But to do that, I got to drag along a few people with me. Now, I don't know if I can get them back to the year they belong. My guidebook was eaten by one of the cats. I don't know, but I know one person who's going to bring me a wealth of information, even if it's just strictly movie-based. But she is the queen of movie foo, the one and only Lacee Adderhold. Is your Omni ready? Have you set it up on all your history?
I'm so excited. This is going to be so much fun. I love this show so much.
Yeah, it is going to be a ton of fun. And this is a special Culture Clash because, I thought it was just going to be me and you, Lacee, being Phineas Bogg and Jeffrey of the podcast, but no. And because it's such a special episode, I reached out with some extra connections, put a few extra wires together here at the studio. And I have drafted in the original Arthur Fonzarelli of the Fandom Podcast Network, one of the co-founders, my brother from another mother, all the way down in the land down under, Mr. Kevin Reitzel.
What's going on, guys? Hey, I feel like I should be upside down right now.
Well, I mean, you have the black jacket on, you got the black and white FPN shirt, your hair's looking black and spiky there, so you are the Fonz today of the Fandom Podcast.
And also, too, since I'm in Australia, we're in the future, so since the game hasn't happened yet, take the Dodgers to win the World Series in 5 and the Jets to win over whoever they're playing on Thursday night. So just so you know.
Yeah, exactly. We won't talk about other teams in the future, but that's quite all right. And guys, I am so excited because we've got another guest joining us, and this is somebody who, of course, has a very long history with the Fandom Podcast Network. And he, of course, has been a little bit out of podcasting for a lot of reasons, but you know what? He's back. He's feeling great, and we are so honored to have him here. He is one of the original co-founders of the Fandom Podcast Network. My brother, Mr. Norman Lau.
Wow, it's great to be on here. First of all, that opening music track was divine. So now I'm completely jazzed up.
Normie!
Hey, great to see everyone. Lacee, great to meet you for the first time. Kevin and Kyle and I have a history. So we're talking history, which is kind of like apropos. I have to admit something, though. My pirate outfit was at the cleaners, and I really tried stitching up my red and white striped shirt, but I ended up having a brilliant idea that kind of was like a light bulb idea as soon as I looked at a thread when I was sewing that shirt. If you know that reference, you're in the right place.
Now, Norman, I know for a fact that you actually do have an Omni floating around your house.
You know what? When I was younger, and I'll probably talk about this a little bit later on, there weren't a lot of props or anything that you can go to a vendor for and just, Amazon it to your way through. So yeah, I had at one point in time an old busted Boy Scout compass that I painted gold and used craft paper to make a little red light and a little green light. And I hand drew a globe that I basically just taped onto the center. And that was it. That and imagination and this show, that's what these shows are all about, right? You can all think about it. We had wiffle ball bats as lightsabers. We had tree branches as blasters. We had terry cloth robes as Jedi robes. And we made the best of it. because the imagination is greater than anything that you can buy ever. So that's where I was with that.
Absolutely. Amen, my brother. Amen. But guys, we are here on the Fandom Podcast Network, and if you're watching and joining us live on YouTube, welcome. Please remember to give us a like, give us a subscribe, and share out to your friends, because we love having you guys join us. If you're listening on the audio podcast version of this, enjoy the ride. If you get a chance, go over to YouTube and watch the video version, because we're going to have some fun slides throughout this presentation as well. But before we get started into all the fandom stuff, another member of the Fandom Podcast Network family has been involved in something very cool. And Lacey, you happen to go see what Mr. Alex Autry has been up to.
Yes, very excited. He does an improv. He has a troupe called Safety Third, Dangerously Funny Improv, and I got a little mug, a little merch. I'm very excited about my merch. They're out of the Aurora Theater in Roswell, Georgia, and they do I think it's the third weekend of every month. They do either Friday or Saturday, and it is so much fun. It is an 18 and up show, because they do have some, the cuss words and whatnot, but it is so much fun. They have a website, Safety Third, improv.com, I believe it is. And there's some videos on there you can kind of see. And they also have Facebook and all that kind of stuff. So if you get a chance, if you like improv, it is delightful. And if you've ever seen one of the podcasts where Alex has been on, he's, as you all know, he's like whip fast, like just wit smart. So it's fun to watch him in a group of people who are as fast as he is. So it's really fun.
Yeah, Alex is great on all of our podcasts that he's on, and this is great. So congratulations to Alex. We're proud of you for that, and definitely check out Safety Third's website. This is a great improv group in the Atlanta area. They do a fantastic job. But guys, before we get any further too, this is the Fandom Podcast Network. We don't just do Culture Clash, even though it is the flagship show of the Fandom Podcast Network. We got all kinds of things going on here. I can't even keep track of it anymore, but I'm going to do my best, because we've got some very cool things happening on the Fandom Podcast Network. And Lethal Mullet just put out its latest episode, Ninja Assassin. We've got the modern classic ninja film. Adam O'Brien, the Mullet himself, did a fantastic job, and he knows his martial arts, and he had a lot of fun doing this episode.
Shout out to Adam. He gave me a call as soon as I arrived in Australia, in Sydney, when I met my wife there, and I listened to his podcast. It was a great show.
Did you have some mullet tingles?
Oh, I did. That was a great movie too. 2009 Ninja Assassin. That was such a fun movie.
Yes, it was.
First Lethal Mullet the other day with Kyle and Adam. We did Boondock Saints, which is cool.
Yes, that is coming soon.
Yeah, it's coming soon.
Is that a mashup of Adam as Franco Nero?
Yes.
Yes.
That is amazing. I want that on a t-shirt.
Well, besides the Lethal Mullet and Adam just taking over the world, Kevin, you just did a little bit of couch potato theater with some of our good friends from the Hair Metal Podcast.
Yeah, as I call the guys from my Hair Metal Council, I had a few of those guys on there, and what's great too is like the three guys that I had on, they all kind of work together as teachers, and they all love hair metal. And so I figured I got to get these guys on for Spinal Tap, the Couch Potato Theater, celebrating, of course, its 40th anniversary. Spinal Tap 2 is coming out next year. It is confirmed and done. And this falls under my category of perfect films. And the best part about it was they all went out and bought T-shirts for the Shark Sandwich T-shirt album that Spinal Tap released, and they all wore it to work on the same day. It was great.
Are we allowed to say the review for that on air?
Yes, you can say it. Go ahead, Norm.
All right. Well, you can't print that review. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, so.
Kevin, I did have one question when I edited this podcast, because I was lots going on here with hurricanes and stuff like that. How many drummers did you go through in that podcast?
Well, apparently, if you look up Wikipedia and the internet, because the internet's always right, there's been a total of 9 or 10 drummers going through 2009, and we'll see who's the drummer in the sequel when it comes out.
Yeah,
I hope it's Lars Ulrich.
I want it to be the little girl.
Nandi Bushnell.
Yes, Bushnell. Yes, I want it.
Yeah.
I vote for Kim Pine. I'd love to see Allison in there as Kim Pine as a drummer.
Oh yeah,
That'd be
there you go.
Super cool.
Yeah,
Ghostbusters quick response units in the chat. It says Spinal Tap is a yearly watch for me. Love that movie.
And it should be.
Yeah, when we got some other great stuff going on too, including over at True Believers, where we have been covering everything that is Agatha all along. The show just wrapped up its final 2 episodes this week, and we will be recording that podcast here shortly. But Kevin, I know you've been a part of this. Of course, our good friend Kat Cedar has been a part of this. I don't want to spoil it because I know Lacey has not watched it yet, but I just want to say this might be one of the best Marvel projects on Disney Plus since the inception of Disney Plus.
Damn well written and very well put together.
I've heard that. Yeah.
Catherine Hahn is a force of nature, and I'll just leave it at that.
She's great. Yeah.
So, also to, of course, Time Warp. Of course, this year for Time Warp, we are hitting the movies of 1984, and we put out October 1984, even though today is November 1st, which means when Kevin gets back from Australia, we'll be working on Time Warp November. But some hit movies in that year, Kevin, especially in October, one of the all-time classics.
Yes, of course. Terminator came out 40 years ago, October, and is a force to be reckoned with. And it was nice to see it on the big screen with my wife earlier this year in Australia with a live orchestra doing the entire music as they played the film. It was fantastic.
Does it hold up big screen wise?
Oh, God, yes, it does. And when you see these tiny girls holding these huge drumsticks and beating against these drums that seem bigger than they are with the dum-dum-dum-dum-dum.
Oh, yeah.
Was fantastic to see live. It was great.
Amazing.
Now, Kevin, there was another movie though that wasn't it bigger than even the Terminator that was in this particular year? Something Gwendolyn, something like that.
Oh, The Perils of Gwendolyn in the Land of the Yik Yak. Yeah, I want you guys to listen to this or watch this podcast for our comments on that movie.
Yeah. The places we go to podcast. That's all I'm gonna say.
Some of these films, they never made it to like the Blockbusters of the world or your like video rental center. They were like that obscure.
Yeah, like Thief of Hearts is a little hidden gem with Ken Wall that was really, really good. I really enjoyed that movie.
We will find the movies in the darkest of realms, or they will be in Lacey's video rental store. One or the other. Also, Kevin, you had a little VH1 hair metal, and I still need to know, did you get the VH1 commentator for this hair metal podcast, or did you just wing it?
That picture you see in that clip art right there is my original VHS copy that I recorded of this special that came out on my birthday in 2001, September 15th. And we decided to cover the whole VH1 top 40 hair metal bands that was hosted by Dee Snider. But then we decided to pick our own top 10 with a sleaze meter that we came up with to judge who should be the top 10 hair metal bands of all time. Check it out.
9 out of 10 Motley Crue.
Motley Crue definitely made the list because they covered everything in the sleaze meter, including killing somebody.
I still refuse to clean the sleaze meter after that podcast. That's all. And of course, too, we've been doing something very fun over at the Union Federation podcast. First of all, we just started our Lower Decks coverage. The final season of Lower Decks has just started. That is always a ton of fun. That show has impressed me well beyond what I thought it was going to be. But we also did something very cool that, Kevin, was your idea for Union Federation.
Yeah, we decided to get back to talking TNG. We love Star Trek Next Generation. But we decided to do is cover all of the 2-part episodes that TNG did, starting, of course, with Best of Both Worlds and then ending off with Gambit. And it was a lot of fun. I found a great article that supported it, gave a shout out to the author there. And we had a lot of fun talking about the 2-parters, doing rewatches of it, finding all the fun bloopers and behind the scenes stuff that happened in those 2-part episodes. And they really did set a precedence with TNG in those. It was a lot of fun. Check it out.
Yeah.
Did they ever make like a boxed set of just the 2-parters? I remembered something about that.
No, not just the 2-parters, but a lot of the 2-parters were in other box sets,
like in the captain set and things like that.
Yeah, and what's interesting is about 4 of these 2-parters actually released as movies on DVDs and Blu-ray, and a couple of them were theatrical, like Best of Both Worlds and Redemption, I think. And some of them were. Chain of Command was also released as a Blu-ray as well. It was great.
And I also remember way back in the day, I feel like maybe a couple of those were those were on VHS, like the little 2-parters, maybe.
Oh yes, yeah.
Those the favorite episodes or whatever.
The funny thing about it is like the Blu-ray edition seasons when they released them, they fixed some of the stuff that was caught on camera, like crew members in the background and stuff like that. And you actually have to go to the original DVDs to see those original flubs. It's really funny.
Now, Norman, we have you here. We all know that you are a voice on Mission Log. We got to ask you real quick. What is your favorite TNG 2-part episode?
Well, you know what? I was just going to say that. I didn't know if I was going to like overstep my opinion here, but for me, I think it's probably going to be Chain of Command. I know Best of Both Worlds was game changing. I mean, it changed the world. It changed the landscape of Star Trek. I get that, and the fire, that Riker said fire at the end, and that 3 months that Seth MacFarlane was tearing the walls out of his house because he couldn't like stand just the anticipation. I think that's great. I think that Chain of Command for me was a little bit better balanced because you had way more drama in the back half of it with Picard being the torch of the four lights, and having
Captain Jericho.
And then you had the great Ronnie Cox in there. But I'm sorry, this last name escapes me, but it's we all know who he is. He was Chancellor Gorkon, in Star Trek 6. David, forgive me. It's just I'm blanking his last name. David Warner. Sorry for that, folks. Don't send the emails the FPN's way. But
they're all going to come to me anyway, Norman. Don't worry about it.
I do love Chain of Command. I just think that Patrick Stewart just went deeper. Just really went for it. So, yeah.
Okay,
sorry, guys.
So, no, it's okay. But Norman, then if that's the case, how many lights do you see?
Right now, I see about 2.
We'll let you roll with that.
All right.
Well, guys, that is everything that is happening on the Fandom.
I know.
That is everything that's happening around the Fandom Podcast Network. But in the here and now, we are talking Voyagers, but we got a lot of other fun stuff to cover here. So let's get things rolling on this. So, ladies and gentlemen, I think it's time. I'm feeling it.
Let's news.
That's right, because there is a ton of fandom news coming out, including some trailer drops and a big thing from Disney Studios, a Marvel Studios look ahead, things that are coming to Disney Plus through the rest of this year and into next. And guys, there's some stuff I'm really excited about, and I know we'll go a little bit deeper into it when we talk True Believers, but I just wanted to go over this real quick. They dropped this trailer before it actually hit the internet, then it was also before the 8th episode of Agatha All Along, but there's some stuff I'm excited about. We've got, before the year is out, we've got the 3rd season of What If, the animated series, which has been a lot better than what I expected, and I know we'll be talking, probably just do a full episode covering the entire season of that on True Believers. And on January 25th, the new Spider-Man animated series, Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. And then the project that I have been so excited for since they announced its return, and the fact that they have brought back most of the people from the original Netflix show, including John Barenthal as the Punisher, March 14th, 2025, Daredevil Born Again. I cannot wait for this. I am so excited. Follow that up in June with Ironheart, the character from Black Panther 2, getting her own series. Then a couple more animated series with Eyes of Wakanda starting August 6th, 2025, followed by Marvel Zombies in October 2025. And then a very interesting project that, Kevin, I know this part of it stood out in the trailer for you because it gives Iron Man 3 even more validation because Trevor is back. Wonder Man, December 2025. Kevin, did you get some Iron Man 3 up there when you watch this? Your mute is on.
Mute.
Kevin, you're muted.
I am an Iron Man 3 apologist. This makes me excited.
I love Iron Man 3.
Yeah.
Lacee, was there anything on these?
I never had a problem with Iron Man 3. I don't know what the big deal is there, right?
Hey.
I mean, I think that the only thing that I can look at it as a Christmas movie because Shane Black has this obsession with Christmas, and I'm down for that. Like anything he does is Christmas, and I love it.
Yeah, I agree there. Just real quick though, seriously, for those of you who have watched the trailer, and I'll just kind of go down the line here. Lacey, was there anything that stood out for you that you're excited about on this?
I think looking at the group, I think I'm excited about all of them. Mostly was going to be Daredevil. Loved the Defender series. Loved all the different versions and everything. I don't know a lot about Wonder Man, but I love everyone in the trailer, so that's fantastic. I'm a little disappointed that Ironheart didn't get a movie. I really feel like she deserves a film, but maybe we'll see enough of her. Maybe she'll have good enough ratings to get a film out of it. I think that when it comes to Disney Plus, there are so many things that it's doing. People don't have time to keep up with it all. And I am a completist. Like I have to watch everything, and I have to do it in order. And I also want the physical media. And Disney Plus does not usually give their physical media, their TV shows physical media. So this is great for content. It's not great for my library.
Kevin, I appreciate that.
Yeah, Kevin, what about you?
Daredevil is what I'm looking forward to. I saw a report. I don't know if it was a fan report. Have you heard differently that Jessica Jones will be returning in this series as well?
That has been a fan report. There has been nothing confirmed on that.
But the Punisher is back, obviously. So
yeah, I mean, yeah, John Barathol is back as the Punisher. So I mean, if I get that, I'm happy. I'm just happy to have Daredevil back on my screen.
Me too. I'm excited for that.
Now, Norman, I know you can be time-wise and everything going on. You don't get to see everything, but is there anything on here that grabs your attention? Because I mean, besides Daredevil, I know the other thing that looks pretty. I'm kind of liking the What If, just because we have a Captain America Gundam going on there.
Right. You know, I watched the trailer a couple times, and the one thing that I found like really unique that just stood out to me was Spider-Man in his original like street uniform before he got upgraded. So I'm like, I would watch an entire series of that, you know, because I like it that it's stripped down, it's basic, it's origin, you know, it's just something that you don't usually see. You see them kind of like the heroes when they're towards the end, you know, now they're getting all these new suits and all the great marketing and all the toys and all that kind of stuff. But I really love like the Spider-Man hoodie. Funny thing is, like I was doing a return, an Amazon return in Kohl's, and I walked by the kids section, and they were probably around, you know, they were like the 13 to 15, you know, like back to school stuff. And they had this Spider-Man hoodie, and it was October 30th. And I'm like, if I was only that size, I would buy that right now, because you could like pull the hood over your head and it had the full mask.
Oh, that's awesome.
So for 364 days out of the year, it's a great hoodie. For one day out of that 365, it is a costume at the same time. I mean, how do you beat that? So I think it was unique. It just, I liked the animation style.
Yeah, I was very impressed with that. Lacey?
I have the Spider-Gwen version of that hoodie.
See?
Nice.
There it is. There you go.
Love it.
It's win-win.
It's hard to wear though, because it does have a lot of white on it, and I'm not super pristine in my activities. Like it's, but yeah, I have the Spider-Gwen version of that hoodie.
Yeah.
I love it.
Well, that's not all the major Disney Plus content, because a new trailer, in fact, today, the day we're recording, dropped, and that's for Star Wars Skeleton Crew. And I'm going to be honest, I've been kind of, I'm not sure about Skeleton Crew. This trailer pulled me in. I am excited. Kevin, I was getting the 80s vibes with the music selection they had. And I was really getting that Spielberg type feeling that they're shooting for with the store that they're trying for with this trailer. Were you getting that vibe?
Yeah, this looks like just a fun Star Wars adventure with the kids' perspective. Yes, Goonies in space that people have been saying, and I'm fine with that. And I think this is a part of Star Wars that is being tapped into that needs to be seen. And, you know, we need to see what it's like with kids growing up in this era and what they go through and, you know, what they learn. And, you know, Jude Law being in it too. It's just, I'm in. It looks like fun.
Norman, what about you? I don't know where you're at with Star Wars right now, but this looked a lot of fun and giving me some of that, a little bit of like Star Wars maybe pulling a little Stranger Things vibe, going with some retro music here going too.
Or Prodigy vibe.
Exactly. So that's kind of like where I was leaning towards. So, you know, when I was hosting Mission Log Prodigy, when I saw this trailer, we didn't really see the trailer. We just kind of like got the news from, I think it was San Diego Comic-Con. And I'm like, well, I felt a very strong reaction to it. It was like, well, that's a little Prodigy-ish, don't you think? And now it has Star Wars money behind it, so it's obviously going to have like this great marketing campaign, and it has Disney Plus behind it. So, you know, let's be honest, it's got a lot going for it. But then I watched the trailer, and you know what? It goes all the way back, like it reminds me of going all the way back to like the Ewok Adventure, right? Or E.T., or like, you know, the Goonies, like any of those kind of like those fish out of water stories where you have like a bunch of kids, a bunch of like disparate backgrounds, and they're all like in the same place, and you get this found family kind of feel to it, right? And who's going to thwart them? The aliens, the adults, the empire. I mean, who? And then you have Jude Law, who's not like a white knight, right? I mean, when we last see him in the Disney Plus universe as Marvel, so he's a little nefarious, and he looks like roguish. I mean, look at his tunic in the poster. It kind of Lando-ish, right? Same kind of like cut, same kind of color. So it'll be interesting. And what will they learn from him? Will he be kind of like the roguish Han Solo, where you learn some heroism from him, or does he take him down a different path, or do they pick up bad habits from him? Who knows? But the bottom line is, kids need to have this kind of vehicle. It's not always about adult stuff. And you know what? If there are people out there that are angry with me, you have all the adult stuff. It's called Since 1977. All right. So get over yourselves. Let them have some kid stuff.
Exactly. Lacey, what about you? What did this trailer give you some feels?
A lot of people are saying, Goonies in space, Goonies, Star Wars, whatever. To me, it had more of an explorer's vibe. And like from the other side, like the explorers, we saw it from the Earth point of view with Ethan Hawke and River Phoenix, and it just, but I feel like it's kind of, because it's literally it's almost like they stole their dad's starship and went off doing things, and it's kind of the other side of the explorers, and I think that's really kind of a cool idea. And out of everything in the last video and this is the one where I was like, okay, I'm in. Now again, I want movies, not shows.
Yeah.
But if this is what's going to be a show, if they do it right, and it has like 6 seasons, then I'm in. If they end up doing like a one and done again, I'm so tired of their one and done, or 2 seasons, and then I want them to commit and stop. I want them to stop dipping their toes. I want them to pick an item, stick to it, give us the full blown universe, of that item.
Because those shelves aren't going to fill themselves.
I know, right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Well, guys, there's a couple other things I found, but this one kind of grabbed my attention more for anything. The cast that is involved in this movie that is apparently going out for bidding here shortly. And the name of this movie is Alpha Gang. Dave Bautista is the latest name being attached to it, but here are the people who are so far cast for this film. You have Channing Tatum, Stephen Young, Zoe Kravitz, Lea Seydoux, Riley Keough, and Cate Blanchett, who's going to star as the alien leader of Alpha One. And here is the plot of Alpha One. The film follows a group of alien invaders who disguise themselves as a 1950s leather-clad biker gang on their mission to conquer Earth. But their ruthless plans are derailed when they encounter humanity's most contagious condition, emotions. Now, I'm just like, you put this cast together and the craziness that could be involved with this cast, and Cate Blanchett is apparently very, very involved in this film as a producer and several other things, but it is getting up for bids here shortly on the circuits here of the different film festivals. But guys, what a grouping cast. I haven't seen a grouping cast like this since like outside of Marvel, maybe in a good while. And this could be just an off the rails type of movie, Norman.
This is news to me. I mean, it sounds interesting. So great cast of characters. I mean, a lot of people know these are some big names. No, Stephen Yeun, he voiced Invincible, right?
Yeah, he is voicing Invincible and doing a phenomenal job. I love that series.
I just watched both series on Amazon. It was a recommendation from a friend of mine, and it blew me away. But mostly because this guy's voice acting is beyond. I mean, it's like you've heard some voice actors that are great. This guy he's ridiculous, and I almost kind of like say I want to see a live action version of Invincible. Although he's kind of like physically not the right guy, but I think this is gonna be fun. I don't know anything about it, but I know the names, and I think Cate Blanchett needs some redemption from that whatever movie that she made, kind of like earlier with it was Borderlands. Borderlands, yeah.
I think a lot of that cast needs some redemption after that movie.
Yeah.
But
was it bad? It looked like it was going to be fun, or was it something where if you knew the original property, you didn't like it, but if you didn't, you did?
I think it was just one of those movies that it ended.
I think
up,
it might be the latter. I think
Yeah.
a lot of people that love the movie or love the series, or excuse me, the video game, were not impressed with the movie.
Okay. See, I don't know the video game, but I thought the movie looked like it was going to be really fun. I didn't get a chance to see it in theaters, but I was like, that's an amazing cast. How can they go wrong? I know, famous last words, but you know.
Now, Kevin, this does sound like it would be something right up the Fandom Podcast Network alley.
Are you talking about Oblivion?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is gonna be a project I think is gonna bear some watching. And I just wanted to bring this up real quick too. But before we close out the news too, we would be remiss if we did not mention the passing of the legendary Terry Garr, who passed away this past week. Kind of fit in a way, seems fitting because passing away, of course, she was one of the stars of Young Frankenstein, which she kind of really made her name on. But we are talking about somebody who is a bit of a Hollywood legend in her own respects. I mean, a lot of us probably know her from either Young Frankenstein, maybe Mr. Mom, obviously Tootsie, but an incredible comedic actress, and just she was one of those actresses that you just wanted to know her. She had that kind of just like that kind of personality. Lacee, you being our queen of movie food, I know you're familiar with Terry Garr.
Oh yeah, I mean, just so many. Okay, so Mr. Mom is one of the films from just the very beginning. That's probably the first time I saw her and realized it was her. Like, you know, when I was recognizing people or whatever. She's just roll rodents ahead. Every time she will be missed. We just did a movie that she wasn't she the mom in Firstborn, right? We just talked about Firstborn.
Yeah.
You know,
Firstborn, 1984. Yeah, she was in that. Yeah.
And it's just one of those things. Like, so she had this, and that was a film where she played basically a divorced, kind of almost a battered woman kind of situation. I mean, she had like amazing range. She wasn't just, you know, the comedic, you know, the comedy, comic relief or whatnot. So she was amazing.
Yeah. Kevin, what was your first real movie with Terry Garr? Was it Mr. Mom, or was it Young Frankenstein, or?
Probably Young Frankenstein, but after rewatching Mr. Mom for Time Warp for last year, she was amazing in that. I felt she kind of stole the movie in a way. But I have to mention, though, for us and a lot of people in the 90s that loved Friends, she was Phoebe Buffay's long-lost mom.
Oh, yeah.
And she did a 2-part episode, and she did a great job of someone who would be an obvious mom to Phoebe Buffay, you know, or you know, that area. So she was great in that.
And she was also in another movie with Lisa Kudrow called Kablooey that has Jeffrey Dean Morgan in it.
Interesting. Norman, what about you? What movie stands out for you for Terry Garr?
Well, I mean, everyone's mentioned like kind of like the big hitters there, but I would be remiss not to mention her as Gary Seven's secretary in Assignment Earth, the original series of Star Trek. So that's the first time I remember remembering her. But Mr. Mom for me was probably like the big thing, because I really did love the role reversal, and kind of like there are so many different layers to Mr. Mom. It depends on when you see it. So seeing it at a certain age, you're like, well, you know what? She was a breadwinner. She was like, you know, trying to take care of the house, and at the same time, you had kind of like the shiftless layabout. That's, you know, Michael Keaton's character, until he, you know, wised up and got back and got fit and worked out with Angelian. And of course, I love me Angelian in that movie. So yeah, but she was strong. She was comedic. She was tender. She was wise. She was, you know, her comedic timing in Young Frankenstein was beyond, you know, and it's like there weren't enough like repeat performances as kind of like the ensemble cast that Mel Brooks would usually pull into, like, say, Blazing Saddles, you know, or you know, some of the other films. And I really wish that she had a scene with Madeline Kahn at one point in time, because I think that would have been amazing together. Yeah. So yeah, a great loss for fandom and a great loss for Hollywood. But at the same time, though, she was here and she put her mark on the earth, and we should all be thankful for it.
Yeah, absolutely. So with that, guys, I was going to wrap up the news here, but we aren't done. We've got a lot still to hear happening here on this episode of Culture Clash, and I know we've seen a couple of things at any rate. We've got a lot of stuff going on. Busy time, but ladies and gentlemen, it's once again time.
Buy it, stream it, or unsee it.
That's right. It's time to buy it, stream it, or see it. Our review section here on Culture Clash. If you really liked it, you're gonna buy it. Maybe you just liked it enough to, hey, I'll watch it if it's streaming. Or gosh, can I just unsee it? And we got a couple of films, and I think we might have some interesting things here. But before we even get into that far, spoiler alert, guys, we are going to be talking about these films a little bit more in depth. So if you have not watched them, go watch them, come back, join us. Or if you're up for getting some spoilers, hey, all the more power to you. And also a quick shout out to our friends at Letterboxd. We love Letterboxd, especially Kevin. Kevin, you have seriously added, I think, to your movie watching numbers while you've been down in Australia, haven't you? You are muted.
You hear me now, right? Yeah.
Now.
Yes, I've been a little busy here in Australia. I've seen several movies. I'm up to 330 films seen since January 1st, 2024. Just a couple of shout outs. My wife and I have been to a great theater called the Astor, which has been around since like 1936, and they show a lot of retro films. And we saw a double feature of The Thing and American Werewolf in London, which was fantastic to see on the big screen. And then on the night before Halloween, Devil's Night, we went to go see The Crow on the big screen, and that was really, really cool. So yeah,
very nice. Well, we have got a couple of interesting movies to talk about here. First and foremost, Venom: The Last Dance, supposedly last go around of Tom Hardy as Venom. Now, I haven't had a chance to see it, but I'll be honest with you, I've had it spoiled for me. So, and then again, it's Venom. I don't know how much there really is to spoil in this case. But Lacey, I know you saw Venom: The Last Dance.
Yeah. Very much enjoyed it. I actually saw a chunk of it twice because I made it through the first 30 minutes, and then people in my theater were just on their phones, and one of them actually took a phone call, and so I actually left that theater, went across the hall, and saw the one that started 45 minutes later, and just sat back down and watched that. So hey, stop watching your phones when you're in a movie theater, people, please. Like, can we just not? Anyway, it was fantastic. I think that there were some interesting casting choices with, like Reese Evans as a character named Martin, because there's some kind of
Spider-Man history there.
Yeah, and so because a lot of people, when they saw the stinger on No Way Home, they assumed that because these characters were here and those characters there, that the Venom universe must be the Andrew Garfield universe. This completely negates that. So, interesting. So that's kind of cool. I enjoyed the casting; was fantastic. Alana Alba. I'm never going to say her name right. She's fantastic. As this, like, her name is like Moon. she's this like hippie kind of loving mom. She's hilarious.
Nova Moon.
Nova Moon. Thank you. Oh my gosh, she was absolutely hilarious. The kids are great. There's this whole thing where they end up with this group of people who are on an alien hunt because of the things and the whatnots. I don't want to give away too much random stuff, but Tom Hardy as Venom is amazing. There's a lot of, I feel like there's a lot more kind of internal conversation with them. They kind of went all out with the stunts this time, not just little stuff, but like big set pieces for stunts. It was really cool. We got to see a lot of other Venoms.
Yeah.
And oh gosh, I'm not going to say her name right. What is the woman who from the female lead, the one from
Juno Temple?
Yes, Juno Temple. She's fantastic. And of course, Donnie Wahlberg. It's got a great cast.
So you're giving definitely a buy it then, Lacey.
Definitely a buy it. Definitely a thumbs up. Definitely gonna see it again in the theaters in the next week just to see it for fun again. So.
Well, Kevin, before I get to you and your thoughts on it, just our good friends over at Type 40 decided to drop in. Other time travel shows? Who knew? Lovely to see you all. Happy times and spaces and places from the crew of Type 40, including Sarah, Simon, Charlotte, and Dan. So much love to our group over at Type
Yay.
40, keeping their TARDIS up and running. But Kevin, you saw this Down Under. What did you think of this film?
I enjoyed it. It was a good popcorn movie. I wasn't expecting a lot, and I thought it was a good chapter to kind of end on if this is going to be Tom's last run as Venom. And it was nice to see a couple people that showed up from Ted Lasso, including Juno Temple and Cristo Fernandez. He's in it as well, which I liked. And Rhys Ifans, who we know from, of course, from Game of Thrones, the Dragons, the new Dragon series.
House of Dragons.
House of
Lizard
Dragons.
and Amazing Spider-Man.
Yes. He's the father of the hippie family, and Alana Urbeck that Lacee referred to. She was great because she was the mom in the Ted TV series, and she was very good in that. It was interesting. I liked seeing the different Venoms in this and how they kind of work together. That was neat. There was a mid-credit scene and an end-credit scene as well. And they did make reference to the snap in this film. So, yeah.
Type 40 guys over there regarding Venom 3, one of their regular panelists, Ian, who I know is quite the director in his own right. He knew the director of this one. They did film school together. So
That's
small
awesome.
little world. Norman, I'm going to ask you, I know you probably haven't had a chance to see Venom the last chance. Have you watched any of the Venom films?
I have not. It's not really, I have nothing against it. I just don't, it's not really in my wheelhouse, like the characters and stuff like that. That was like kind of like a side of Marvel that I haven't really gotten into. And I know it's like the Sony side. So it's not really kind of like integrated with the Marvel universe. Not that it needs to be. It might be better off if it's not. I don't know. I do like Tom Hardy. I have seen clips of Tom Hardy as Venom from the first movie. But yeah, I don't do a lot of movies nowadays for Lacee for the exact same reason what you're talking about. It's like, if you guys are, I don't know if they're paying for movies anymore walking in, but you guys, it's a movie theater. It's not your living room. All right. So that's been the one big thing. I know some people can turn it off. I cannot. And then when you're paying like $15 to $20 just for the ticket fee, let alone the food, I kind of want everyone to be back, in the public space, respectful realm. Because I don't know why you're there.
Thank you. Why are you paying $20 plus a babysitter to go and talk on your phone?
Right. I understand if it's in like an emergency, and like my dad was a doctor, when he got buzzed, he would leave the theater and he would be out in the lobby and missing the entire movie. I get that. And it's upsetting. But at the same time, I'm like, if just be there to be there, be present, because when someone's going to ask you, like, what's it all about? And you don't know, not only make you look like an idiot, but you're a poor idiot now because you bought the ticket for the movie. Right. So just be respectful.
I just want to mention too. Agreed. I completely agree with you guys. I hate when people do that. I just want to give a shout out to Andy Serkis has a voice role in this film as well as the character of Null.
Oh, perfect.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. I haven't seen this yet. I do have every intent to go see it. If nothing else, Tom Hardy having arguments with himself for about 90 minutes to 2 hours is quite entertaining. So, and I found the first two Venoms, at least his performance is worthwhile to make it watching. Hopefully I'll get a chance to see it in theater, but I'll definitely be streaming it when it comes out. But speaking of streaming,
like watch him do his own reads, because he'd be like, Tom, like back and forth. Like, I don't need a script partner. I'm literally a script partner for myself.
Yeah, exactly. But speaking of movies that you don't have to go to the theater for, there is a new film on Netflix that I am going to highly recommend. I actually just finished watching this movie last night. It is Rebel Ridge, the new movie with Aaron Pierre, Don Johnson, and Anna Sophia Robb. If you are a child of a certain age, it definitely has a little bit of Rambo First Blood type vibes to it. Aaron Pierce, who took over this role from John Boyega, who left this because of issues he had on set with certain things, and it hasn't all come out yet. I thought he was brilliant in this film. Anna Sophia Robb is great in this. And when Don Johnson plays a bad guy, he plays a really smarmy, you want to really hate this guy's guts bad guy. And he plays a very corrupt sheriff in this movie. I'm just going to say, for me, if I could buy this movie, I would. This was a very intense and very good film with some great action sequences and realistic martial arts type scenes. And one of the things that I really liked about it too was the main lead, who is you kind of get a little bit of that a John Rambo feeling from him in the situation he's in. He actually does not kill anybody in this film, but he is quite successful at taking them out and incapacitating them. And it was really refreshing to the intelligence of that and how he does that. Kevin, you said you have seen this film. What did you think of Rebel Ridge?
Yeah, I saw the trailer for it. I was like, I wanted to see this, and I had some time to watch this when I was down here in Australia, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. The lead actor, Pierre, is that his name?
Yeah, Aaron Pierre.
Yeah, he was fantastic. I want to see this guy in more stuff. I want to see his star rise. He commanded every scene that he was in. What's interesting about this movie too, it's not just about, like in Rambo, you basically get some cops that are obviously they have a prejudice against people in the
First
service.
Blood specifically, right?
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
But this one, what's interesting, it's based on a true story about how these small town sheriffs and corrupt police officers, it's based on a real life incident where they do these search and seizures, and they're very smart in this film, especially with the character of Anna Sophia Robb, who I was trying to remember where I'd seen her before. I remember she was in the Race to Witch Mountain remake with The Rock, Dwayne Johnson. And she's all grown up now, and she was really good in this because she helps him in this, and she kind of uncovers the corruptness that happens and how they use time against some of these people to seize their assets, to use them towards other nefarious things or other reasons. And they do a really good job of that side of the plot and explaining why this group of police officers is corrupt and what they do. And the lead actor he does a really good job because he's trying to help his cousin who's in jail, and he's trying to post his bail, and his bail and about getting back, and he's got a certain set of skills that he's learned in the States about teaching people about self-defense that he uses very well in this film, and I thoroughly recommend it. It's good.
Yeah. I like I said, Norman, Lacey, I think you both would really like this film. It's very intelligent and then well acted. Kevin, I'm just gonna say this too. If Marvel can't work out their stuff with Mahershala Ali as Blade, I would love to see Aaron Pierce play Blade.
I was thinking I would love to see him in the Marvel universe. This guy is fantastic. I would love to see him helm another action based on the same character. I would love to see him do this character again. He was just great. Loved him.
I will say this too. If they were to ever actually recast Black Panther, he would be somebody I would consider for the role. He was that good in this film. So yeah, it's a buy it for me. Check this film out. It's on Netflix, so watch it in the comfort of your own home, guys. It was fantastic. But you know what? It is time to get into the heart of this particular episode of Culture Clash. That is right. It's time to once again dive into the Fandom Podcast Network Time Travel Spotlight. We've had a lot of fun covering a bunch of different things over this year involving time travel. We're not quite done yet, and I think we might have a little something fun at the end of the year with our wrap-up of Time Travel Spotlight. We'll get into more on that a little later on, but I wanted to deviate from the movies a little bit. You know, we've been focusing on the movie side. Kevin is down in Australia, so I threw it out there, and I know Lacey was on board quick. We're going to dive into the realm of time travel on television. Now, normally you would probably jump right to Doctor Who, but no, I went into the Wayback Machine. I went into the cult classic TV land, into one of my all-time favorite shows canceled way too early, Firefly, before it was Firefly. That is Voyagers. Now, when I talked to Mr. Lau and told him we were discussing Voyagers, I think he put his Omni into overdrive, wanting to be part of this show, because I know, and I've known for a very long time, Norman, you have been a huge fan of Voyagers.
Yeah, I was really excited to be invited on to talk about Voyagers, because I think that, you know, these are the kind of shows that they slipped through kind of like the general public knowledge, and, you know, it's gotten a resurgence, much like Lacey was putting up the DVD set, which came out, I think of like early 2000s ish. And that was it's the only release that's come out yet. I don't even think it came out on video unless it was a bootleg copy. But my love affair with Voyager like started all the way back in 1982. 1982 was like the best year ever for me. It was like Voyagers, The Wrath of Khan, and everything else in between. I didn't know about the show at first, but when I was in third or fourth grade, teachers were handing around this book order form, Scholastic Books order form. And there were just a bunch of different books you could get, you know, kind of like the classic type stuff. And there was a thing called Voyagers, or saying a time travel story about a young boy and a you know, a pirate named Phineas Fogg. And I was like, I begged my parents. It was like $3.95, right? And I needed them to sign the form because you needed your parents' permission to do that. And it came back. You can get this online. It's, you know, it's very vintage. And if you got a mint copy, good for you. But it goes over the story and kind of like the premise. And then all of a sudden it's, you know, it's on NBC. It's on a very bad time slot, but it's for someone who's the same age as Jeffrey Jones. This is the kind of story that captures the imagination. And we didn't get a lot of that when we were kids. Kind of like the case in point that we were making for, you know, the new Star Wars show. The Skeleton Crew. Sometimes you need that reconnection, especially for kids. And the other thing about this show that made it great is that it didn't insult kids' intelligence. The main hero, or one of the two main heroes of this show, Jeffrey Jones, Mino Palouse, he was a history expert. He was the one who got the big hero, the muscles, Phineas Fogg, John Eric Hexam, got him out of trouble because he was smart, right? You know, and that was the beauty of it. You know, he never treated Jeffrey like a kid. You know, he always treated Jeffrey like a partner. And there are so many great examples of that. I could go on and on and on, but I don't want to overstay my intro. I just love the show. I adore it, you know, for every reason possible.
Well, Norm, you've also influenced our good friend Dan Hadley over Type 40, because Norm told me to put this on my list 6 years ago. I finally watched the pilot today. That little cough there. He said it was absolutely delightful, and that's when
you can manipulate time, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Right.
So just real quick here, guys, I want to kind of give you the tagline for the show in a brief plot synopsis. Tagline is: we travel and this opened every show. We travel through time to help history along. Give it a push where it's needed. When the Omni's red, it means history's wrong. Our job is to get everything back on track. And as far as the plot for Voyagers was came out in October 3rd, 1982 on NBC, and it aired till July 10th, 1983. Of course, starring John Eric Hexam and Mino Palouse. A little bit of the plot: Phineas Fogg, played by John Eric Hexam, is one of a society of time travelers called Voyagers, who, with the help of a young boy named Jeffrey Jones, played by Mino Palouse, from 1982, uses a handheld device called an Omni, which looks like a large pocket watch that flashes red when history is wrong and green when the timeline is corrected, to travel in time and ensure that history unfolds correctly. Fogg and Jeffrey first met when Fogg's Omni malfunctioned and took them to 1982. The device itself was not supposed to reach any later than 1970. Landing him in the skyscraper apartment of Jeffrey's aunt and uncle, who were caring for him after his parents' death. Fogg's guidebook, which contained a detailed description of how history was supposed to unfold, was grabbed by Jeffrey's dog, Ralph, and in the struggle to retrieve it, Jeffrey accidentally fell out of his bedroom window, and Fogg jumped out to rescue him by activating the Omni. With his guidebook stuck in Fogg, who was being much more interested in history, apparently never paid much attention in his Voyager training and history classes, had to rely on Jeffrey, whose father had been a history professor, to help him. Jeffrey's knowledge proved invaluable. For example, in the first episode, Jeffrey ensured that baby Moses' basket traveled down the Nile, where it was met by the Pharaoh's daughter. While Phineas is a great womanizer and manages to fall for beautiful women, in almost every episode, when Jeffrey's wisdom was paired up against Fogg's stubbornness, Jeffrey usually wins out, to which Fogg would always mutter,
"Smart kids give me a pain."
Yeah. Well, I just say bat's breath to that, because that was one of Phineas's favorite catchphrases, kind of his explicitive, if you say, frilling. They develop a strong relationship and become a formidable team. In the course of their adventures together, they sometimes encounter other Voyagers whose missions happen to overlap with theirs. revealed later in the series, despite Jeffrey's age and accidental circumstances of his first encounter with Phineas, he was always destined to become a Voyager. And even more importantly, one of the great things about the show was the educational part of it. And at the end of every episode, over the closing credits, regular cast member Mino Palouse said in every episode, if you want to learn more about historical elements from the episode, take a voyage down to your public library. It's all in books. Guys, this show was everything that was 1980s at that time. Kevin, I'm going to go to you next because you kind of reintroduced yourself to it because you weren't really on board with it when it first came out. You had maybe watched it casually, but nothing serious. And you at least watched 3 episodes of it before we did this show. So I'm kind of wondering what your impressions of Voyagers was.
Yeah, I remember coming on. I just don't remember us catching every episode when I was a kid. I don't know what time it was on. But for us, we didn't have any other cable channels and stuff like that. And I don't remember it being in syndication to where I could rewatch it later on. So to me, it was one of these lost gems in the ether until, you've been talking about this show for a while, Kyle, about, showcasing it on the Fandom Podcast Network. And since we've been talking about time travel as the theme this year on Culture Clash, this was obviously a good avenue to do so. And so I decided to, while I was here in Australia, I actually purchased the entire season, $15 on iTunes for the entire season, which I thought was a great deal. And I watched the first 2 episodes last night to get a feel for it. I was instantly taken back in time going, okay, I'm kind of remembering this a little bit. And then I watched the final episode of it too, because it had to deal with Jack the Ripper, which I thought was a fun little thing too. And, one of the things that I was reminded about this series that I really like is that it really caters to teaching people about history, and that it's not a lot of the famous people that they meet. And thanks to the kid, because he knows his history, and he's helping the lead actor John Eric Hexum around, because Erickson doesn't have his book, his cheat sheet, basically, and so he's relying on this kid for all of these wonderful things. And it's great to have a young kid and us reliving that as kids, this kid knowing his history. And I've always been a big history fan in general. It's been one of my favorite parts of school and such. And I love that they really cater to teaching people about history, and that they remind you of that at the end, whether it's the young kid telling you to go to your voyage down to your local library and learn about history. And it was fun to revisit these stories and the history characters that they come across.
Now, Lacey, you were all in as soon as I brought this up too, much like
Yes.
Norman. I know you are a huge fan of this show.
Oh yeah. I still can't figure out why this show was canceled. This was such a great show. It was nice to see a kid who knew more than an adult, because I was always that kid in elementary school that would ask the questions that the teacher wouldn't have the answer for, or the teacher would not be allowed to tell me the answer for because maybe it was too not age appropriate at the time, whatever. A lot of that came from Sunday school, where I would end up in the hallway with crayons because they wouldn't have an answer for me, or I'd ask something that was too in depth for them to go into for a kid. So that this show really did make me feel like it was okay to ask those questions and to know more than an adult, or to, I don't know, not be worried that an adult was going to be mad if I corrected them, or if I asked them a question or asked them to verify something. So, and of course the history of it all, which is my favorite. I mean, I love history. History is one of my favorite subjects. I love exploring history. Whether it's in my own area, I'm in Georgia, so there's a lot of history here, versus going to London or Paris or wherever. And just, I'm always interested in all the historical stuff that maybe isn't necessarily, it's just like the off the beaten path stuff. I always want to know, I want to know the personal histories of people in history. So that's kind of fun. So. And I got to tell you, watching it the other night, I got through 16 episodes, I think. I got 3 left or 4 left. And the first time I heard Mino say at the end of it, if you want to learn more about the World War I Flying Aces, So take a voyage. And I choked up like I did. I was just like, oh, yay.
I know,
Well,
right?
Yeah, right. It's just,
And
yeah.
I think that's one of the magics of the show is we all were that kid. We are all that. It was our him being kind of our point of view character.
Mhm.
Really, I think that's why it worked with so many of us of that age range right in there because we
Yeah.
wished it could have been us. And
And
that,
it could have gone for 5 more seasons. But realistically, if it had gone for 5 more seasons, we might still have John Eric Hexum with us today.
yeah, we're gonna get into that in here in just a minute. But Kevin,
Okay.
I just want to say one of the genius things that you get this watching the first episode. I watched the second one. The second one had Harriet Tubman and Spartacus, if I remember correctly. And the genius of the show is that they'll go back and forth in between these stories. And I thought instead of just taking one episode and sitting in one section of history, they're going back and forth and helping the situation. And I love the fact that they're helping young Harriet Tubman, and the young kid that's helping Jeffrey, you find out is a young Samuel Clemens. And I love how they just kind of laid stuff out like that. I thought it was great.
yeah,
And we do get to Thomas Edison.
yeah, exactly. I mean, I want to talk about the cast a little bit. Jeffrey Jones, played by Mino Palouse. He was born in Amsterdam, Netherlands, and was the son of Sandra Laundrie, a Jewish-American personal manager and caterer, and Floyd Palouse, a certified public accountant. Yes, for the CPA crowd here in the podcast, but he has one half-sister, though, and this is where it gets interesting. His half-sister is Punky Brewster herself, Soleil Moon Frye, whose father was actor Virgil Frye. In the 70s, he actually did a lot of guest appearances, including Starsky and Hutch, Kojak, Benson, The Love Boat, Different Strokes, The Incredible Hulk, Happy Days, The A-Team, Silver Spoons, Manimal, Remington Steele, Scarecrow and Mrs. King, and Punky Brewster. And then among his regular television roles were Tanner Boyle in The Bad News Bears, Daniel Best in Best of the West, and as a history and his character of Jeffrey Jones in Voyagers. He appeared in the pilot episode of the MASH spinoff Walter with Gary Berghoff, but the series was never picked up. He worked as a writer and director. He appeared in several television films, including The Ghost of Flight 401, Night Cries, Fast Friends, and World War III. He starred in the original 1979 theatrical release of The Amityville Horror as one of the Lutz children, and also appeared in the 1981 horror film Don't Go Near the Park. He also appeared in the music video for The Last in Line by Dio, Evan. So, he attended UC Santa Cruz and worked as a history teacher at Hollywood High School in the 1990s. He returned to film in 1998, co-writing and co-producing Wild Horses, also titled Lunchtime Special with his sister Soleil Moon Frye, and in 2001, where he appeared in Alex in Wonder, also titled Sex and a Girl. He's also a photographer with Celebrity Studio Sessions to his credit. This is where I'm about to get into now is kind of the black history of Voyagers, the dark time, because we are talking about John Eric Hexum, who was a very handsome up-and-coming star at the time he did Voyagers. He was just starting to get some notoriety after Voyagers. He went on to do a show called Cover Up. And on October 12th of 1984, the cast and crew of Cover Up were filming the 7th episode of the series titled Golden Opportunity on Stage 18 of the 20th Century Fox lot. One of those scenes filmed that day called for Hexum's character to load cartridges into a .44 Magnum handgun, so he was provided with a functional gun and blanks. When the scene did not play as the director wanted it in the master shot, there was a delay in filming. Hexum became restless and impatient during the delay and began playing around to lighten the mood. He had unloaded all but one blank round and spun it, and simulating Russian roulette, he put the revolver to his right temple and pulled the trigger. The explosive effect of the muzzle blast caused enough blunt force trauma to fracture a quarter-sized piece of his skull and propel it into his brain, causing massive hemorrhaging. Hexum was rushed to Beverly Hills Medical Center, where he went 5 hours of surgery to repair his wounds. On October 18th, age 26, 6 days after the accident, Hexum was declared brain dead. With his mother's permission, his body was flown to San Francisco on life support, where his heart was transplanted into a 36-year-old Las Vegas man at California Pacific Medical Center. Hexum's kidneys and corneas were also donated. One cornea went to a 66-year-old man and the other to a young girl. One of the kidney recipients was a critically ill 5-year-old boy, and the other was a 43-year-old grandmother of 3 who had waited 8 years for a kidney. Skin that was donated was used to treat a 3.5-year-old boy with third-degree burns. So even in tragedy, John Eric Hexum affected a lot of lives. I remember when this first happened, just being just kind of shocked and a little devastated because I knew who he was from Voyagers, obviously, and I had been a little bit familiar with the cover-up show, and they basically wrote him out as his character being killed on cover-up. But Norman, I mean, John Eric Hexum could have been one of the big stars of the 80s, without a doubt.
Yeah, I mean, that's I just watched another video about more of the details of that, and a couple of things that were like, I think maybe glossed over in just the general understanding of what happened with John Eric Hexum is, the dissatisfaction that was happening with Cover Up. It was like one of the lowest rated shows coming out that season. Glenn A. Larson was executive producer and writer of the show. After that 7th episode, he met with the powers that be, and they basically rewrote that episode. Well, it was from somebody like Glenn A. Larson took over, and they rewrote this episode so that John Eric Hexum would have more action to do and just a better uptick, in terms of the quality of a show that he wanted to be a part with. And then I think he was at dinner with Glenn Larson, and then he was supposed to go do this high wire act with in Las Vegas at Circus with the Stars. There's a lot going on at the time of rewriting the show, putting the scene in that he's supposed to do. He was actually supposed to kill this character who was played by Bubba from Forrest Gump. It was one of his first television roles. Pardon me?
Michael T. Williamson.
Yes, Michael T. Williams. Thank you. And all of that said, he was ill prepared. To use a firearm on set. His family sued the studios because he wasn't properly trained in firearm safety. And I'm tired of hearing about this every single time someone gets killed by basically, a safety violation with firearm handling. The armorer's job is to keep these actors safe. That is your job. You are not there to serve coffee. You're not there to act lines. You are there to make sure that those guns don't kill people. All right. So whoever was in charge of that down in 1982, I don't care if the script was rewritten or if he was tired or if he was just playing around, the person who was in charge of that gun was responsible. Right? Because he should never have had that gun, especially just twirling it around in playtime, just doing stupid stuff. Because that's what happened. He died. I get very passionate about this. He died senselessly, right? At breakthrough period of his career, right? He was gorgeous. I mean, I have the most serious hetero crush on this guy. He was a leading man. He was like Bond material. He was everything, right? And that stupid act of whatever happened ended something that could have been one of a legendary career, in my opinion.
His voice is amazing. That was one of the things that stood out when I was rewatching this, Norm. He could have also had a huge voiceover role as well, in addition to acting.
Look at him on the screen. He had everything. He had the physique. He had the charm. He had the riz, as the kids say it. He had everything.
Yeah.
And literally 30 seconds of stupidity on everyone's part took that away. And it breaks my heart. Breaks my heart to this day.
Kevin, we've of course obviously talked about how affected we were when Brandon Lee passed away on the set of The Crow. This one again, very very similar in the aspect of, hey, we got somebody who's just about to break out, really about to hit their breakout, and this happens. And he was so good on Voyagers.
Yeah, I got that and I was reminded of that just watching these 3 episodes that I got caught up on, and very charismatic. But like I said, he's a good-looking guy as well. But that voice, to me, he just came across every time he spoke. And in a generation where voiceovers and voice acting and television commercials and stuff like that, this guy had a long history in whatever he wanted to do in film, behind film. And it's a tragedy. And it reminded me of the Brandon Lee thing. And then more recently on the set of Rust with Baldwin. And Norm's right. That you have one job to do, and that is the most important job. And it's a life or death job, is the armorer. And we've learned that people still haven't learned from that.
And Lacey, I think John Eric Hexum could have been right up there as far as top heartthrobs of the 80s at that time period, right there with Tom Selleck and some of the other big ones.
Oh yeah. I mean, I agree that the armor is responsible for making sure that everyone is safe on set. I also know that in 1982, there were no rules. There was no regulation on this kind of thing. And this is not something that necessarily was required of an armorer at that point. His job was providing weapons. Like realistically, that, I mean, so like maybe now it's something where, especially with rust and that kind of thing, like I understand because there has to be the first person who dies before somebody's going to pay attention and go, oh wait, maybe we should pay attention and figure out how to make sure this doesn't happen again. It's just, I mean, it's the same reason that in 1973 or 78 or whatever, I mean, I remember when the law about seatbelts came into play. Like, I remember hearing people complaining about seatbelts, like you can't make me wear. There's a reason that we have seatbelt laws, and that's because up until a certain time, people just kept flying out of cars. So it's just you gotta. I just
no.
It seems like everyone who, I mean, if there was a gun on set, I wouldn't be messing with it. I would be terrified of it if I didn't have proper training. So I mean, the fact that nobody said, wait, no, stop, nobody tried to stop him. Nobody said anything. And I think like something about his last words were like, oh, this boredom is killing me or something like that. And he just legit blew his brain. Like, I mean, it's sad and upsetting and senseless. And
well, I do have some interesting trivia about this show too. Of course, this was the first filmed acting project for John Eric Hexum. The cover of the Omni, or Omnicron as it was called in the script, is engraved with the phrase, "Time waits for no man." When they canceled Voyagers, there was a funny skit on the David Letterman show called "They Took Away My Show," where Dave helps a kid overcome his disappointment. The skit originally aired on 9/5/1983. I think you can find this on YouTube, so go hunt that down. And just the magic of television. No matter where Jeffrey and Phineas travel in time, they always manage to find the perfect fitting clothes from that era. So, he's just perfect there. And let's hit some of the quick time travel tropes of this show too. We have the quirky time traveler in Phineas Bogg. We have a person out of time in Jeffrey Jones, and we have fixing broken time with, of course, the job of the Voyagers. And so, Kevin, I know you need to get going here shortly because the Australian people are gonna mess with your Wi-Fi and maybe stick some kangaroos on you. I kind of want to, with the time travel tropes it's got some classic things involving with it. Give me some of your final thoughts on Voyagers.
I like how they just drop in on situations. They don't get too technical behind it. I did want to give a shout out to the theme music, by the way. It kind of had a John Williams-y vibe to it. I thought it was done well. But the Omni, is that what it's called? The time travel device? That thing is fantastic because it looks like it could do what it needs. And it's got like the little revolving globe in there with the little dials around it and the simple little red or blue light to let you know how things are going. I think it's a wonderful time travel device that you don't need to ask a lot of questions about it. It just is what it is. So yeah. Well, anyway, guys, Kevin, I got to get going. I got to do some Australia things with the wife and the family. We're going to do lunch.
Good seeing you, brother.
Yep. Good to you, Kevin. We will see you back in the States soon. Of course, our love to the lovely Erin Reitzel Gill. So,
all right, guys. I love you. Minorum, good to see you, man.
Yes, you too, man. We'll see you soon.
Norman, I want to get with you because this one hits so many bases on the time travel tropes here that that's one of the magics of it because it really melds a lot of things together. I think sometimes better than Doctor Who, to be honest with you.
Well, I mean, Kevin brought up a really good point. Sometimes, and I think Lacey said this too. Sometimes you just let the fantasy take it over. Take you over, and you don't have to worry about how did this get set up. Although, like the big question that's still kind of like, it's in the back of my head. It rattles around in that empty cage of a brain of mine. Is that how does history go wrong?
Right.
How does that happen? But we do know that in an episode when we first are introduced to Drake, the trial of Phineas Bogg, he has a new Omni, and maybe he's the reason why history goes wrong, and it forces he's trying to set traps for Bogg because he's Bog's greatest rival, right? So going in all the way, because Kevin saw it, going all the way to the Jack the Ripper episode, with Nellie Bly, that's Drake. Drake is setting the traps to see if he can get Bog, and out in the open, so he knows that he'll be able to, take advantage of his revenge. But with all time travel episodes, I think that the further along we go in terms of like modern society and modern storytelling and the effects and all that kind of stuff, I think we lose a little bit of that innocence. Whereas, like, it is what it is, right? These guys like fall out of the sky, not a single bone is broken. May all of your landings be soft. We all know that it's
always find the haystack.
Find a haystack or a thing of clothes or the horses and cows and stuff like
English.
Exactly. Yeah. So it is the focus is those two and their adventures and us wanting to take over Jeffrey's role. Like, we want to superimpose ourselves as Jeffrey, right? And I think Quantum Leap did the exact same thing. You didn't have to really get into the weeds of the temporal dynamics or the consequences or what do they call them, the paradoxes. That's Doctor Who's realm, right? They do all that kind of stuff. And the only other time travel episode that was a little bit earlier than this, that's very much set the tone for Voyagers, was Time Tunnel, right? So there's a huge time tunnel relationship, with the late great James Darren in the title role. So it's let the story tell itself, let the technical stuff kind of like work itself out. But if you're worried about that stuff and not the story, then the story itself is not servicing the audience. It's failing the audience. When the reason why we get so worked up about John Eric Hexum is because we loved Phineas Bogg. We loved him as a character. He was a superhero, right? But he also had his flaws, and Jeffrey brought that out. And they loved each other, and you wanted somebody like that in your life, just to pal around with and get in trouble with and get out of trouble with. So there's so much right in this show than all those inconsistencies that are wrong, right?
There's a great moment in the first episode when Phineas and Jeff are walking the beach and they're talking about the problems, and Phineas says something about Jeffrey's dead parents and the reaction, and then what Bog immediately realizes what he's done and is apologizing, and Jeffrey just emotionally loses it. Like, everything he'd been holding inside.
If I was your parents, I'd want to get away too. I'm like, oh, dude.
Yeah.
You can't say that.
Yeah. But that was the great thing about their relationship, was that they were like brothers, but they also had a little bit of a father-son kind of dynamic as well. And they really looked out for each other. And it was great how that dynamic between the two built throughout the show.
And realistically, like, they did go back in time to some pretty far back. I mean, they went to Roman times, they went to, obviously Egypt way, 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 way back, where a 24-year-old dude could have a 10-year-old son. And it would make sense. I don't know. I do have one weird little hot take though. I think that just because of his red and white striped shirt and the fact that he kept disappearing on people, I wonder if that's the beginnings of Where's Waldo.
There we go.
I love that.
I know we're running a little bit longer, but there's one very important piece of the Voyager show that we need to get into, because we need to talk about the time travel technology, and that is the beauty of that is the Omni. One of the greatest yet most simplistic time travel devices ever made. And I've got a little bit of information, thanks to Norman, and some links he gave me about the Omni, because the Omni by definition means in all things or in all ways or places. It's a fitting name for this simple yet stylish time travel device Voyagers use to travel through the ages. The Omni, guided by unseen omnipotence, most likely the hardworking historians and administrators at Voyager headquarters, knows exactly when and where to send Voyager field workers on assignment. But it would help if the Omnitex retooled those bumpy landings, because, I don't think there was very many good landings. But a little bit more about the history of the Omni. The Omni, Norman.
No, it's just the sound effect. You hear this.
And let's be honest with you too. The time travel thing with the fuzzy squares flying by them, and the music, yeah. I mean, it pulls you so in, and it's so much fun. But a little bit more about the Omni too, because this is really what a very interesting time travel device. The Omni is the tool old Voyagers use to travel through time. The Omni, or Omnicron, as it was originally named in the script, comes in different state-of-the-art models, but Phineas Bogg uses a standard brass version. He often curses the Omni for getting stuck in the automatic mode, with the red and green lights flashing and constantly buzzing. While in automatic mode, a Voyager is unable to leave the time zone until the Omni is field stripped. In the episode Worlds Apart, inventor Thomas Edison, played by Stephen Keats, was so enthralled with the Omni, he took it apart down to the last dirty gear, nut, and bolt and cleaned it. He unwittingly...
No, I'm never going to get back to Bog. Oh, I love that scene.
He unwittingly field stripped it. Poor Jeffrey had a fit, thought he ruined history and his ability to see Bog again. Edison fortunately had the genius to put it all back in perfect working order. The Omni had the filthiest movement he had ever seen. When Jeffrey admitted it to it being a time machine, Edison laughed heartily. Now that would be an invention. Now, according to various magazines, articles, and reviews, the Omni was originally called by its full name, the Omni Chronometer. That name was never used in the final cut of the series, nor did the mysterious tribunal members use it in the episode The Trial of Phineas Bogg. Bogg was furious after losing his guidebook because it most likely gave directions on how to field strip the darn thing for himself. The mechanical parts of the Omni work just like a watch. In fact, the component watchmaker can successfully service the parts. Field stripping doesn't involve a complete dismantling. It's more like a cleaning and lubricating certain parts and performing some adjustments when necessary, kind of like an engine tune-up as opposed to a complete overhaul. Now, and something I love about the Omni dial rings are divided in 5 sections, starting with the globe. The tiny ball bearings are used for grip and to manipulate the dials. You've got the globe, the location on the world map landmass. The first is a lock ring to hold the globe in place. The second ring represents the month. The third ring represents the day. The fourth ring is the latter year. On Boggs Omni, it would be 0 to 99, but his specific parameters were set for 1970. The Omni was not meant to travel into the future. The fifth dial is the century. On Boggs Omni, it is 1900 to 1999 AD. The prop art director wasn't sure how Bogg was able to travel to 1450 BC. Later, fans created their own Omni parameters and did that. And guys, it's just a great device. I kind of think, Norman, that Doctor Who maybe even kind of spoofed it a little bit when especially during the Moffat era with the Vortex manipulator.
Right.
But
yeah,
just what a great device, and how in the 80s this wasn't marketed as some kind of toy. If this show would have continued for 2 or 3 seasons, it would have had to have been, because every kid would have wanted an Omni.
Right. And that's kind of like going back to my original opening about the story about the Omni. Like they didn't have, you couldn't go to Kmart or, Gold Circle, or we didn't have Walmart at the time. So like Sears or, those kind of stores where all the toys were. So you had to make your own. Like I said, I had a busted compass, a Boy Scout compass, the old gray, green, gray flip ones with a, and I just had to paint it. I had to paint it gold, and it worked. It worked because the thing is that it's not the device itself, it's the imagination of the device, right? So, and if you looked at the dials as we're looking at right now, when it's set into default mode, when all the rings are supposed to line up at 0, 0, 0, the red markings on there create the Voyager V. It's awesome. Like small details. You have little bitty magnifying glass. There are 2 different versions of the globe. You have one with or without the crosshairs, so that supposedly you're supposed to dial in where you're supposed to land, but Bogg never did that. And a little fun fact about the guidebook. Supposedly they were going to write in something about the guidebook gets updated like a pad does in Star Trek by Voyager Central. So like if there's something goes wrong, it'll just upload new pages and the pages will rewrite themselves. So, but I don't want to see that stuff. Like I don't care about that stuff. I want them to get into the action. Why is the light red? Why is history wrong? Seeing like, I want to see Jeffrey cry because he sees Billy the Kid as not a hero. He was my hero. You were the greatest. No, I'm not, kid. Right. Or seeing Lance Legault, one of the greatest, character actors ever in the 1980s, is Stonewall Jackson, in the South. He's look at this. When you watch this series, you can see so many guest stars that happened. Like it's literally like one of the greatest Who's Who moments, like in TV.
Jonathan Frakes plays Charles Lindbergh.
Yep.
Greg Henry played Teddy Roosevelt.
For first episode, you had Ed Bagley Jr. as one of the Wright brothers.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's. I think what I love about this. I'm sorry, Lacey, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
No, it's all good.
But maybe y'all feel the same way about it. It's such a great trip down memory lane. It's like it's our own history watching a history channel. I've learned about so much of history, and my love of history just became a part of this, right? So if this is like one of those desert island scenarios of all the time travel shows that are out there, I would take Voyagers any day of the week, twice on Sunday.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and there's something about it too. Watching that when I rewatched the first episode, it does take you to that place, and it feels good. It's in a way, and this sounds corny, but it's wholesome. It's it's not it's not going to get you that craziness to it, but it's got an innocence about it too. That just from that time period that we just don't have anymore. And this show would never be made like this in the modern era.
I have to ask you guys a question then. Would you want to see it done in the modern era?
I would be open for the idea, but it would need to be the right people involved. Because I think it's a great concept that did not get a chance to get fully explored. But again, I don't know who I would trust with it right now either, without somebody just taking it and turning it into a darker type series. And that's the key. That's part of the magic of Voyagers, is you have to keep the innocence of it. And I think that's just something we wouldn't be able to keep in these days. And let's be honest too, there's things in this show that just wouldn't fly in today's society, and how they with certain aspects of this, and just how they filmed it. Even though as innocent as it is, it's the sensibilities of society today versus the sensibilities of 1982.
I think as far as the idea of, kind of like a man and a kid going around and doing all the fun stuff, like that's because the time travel of it all and the fixing history. I mean, we've had sliders, we've had Quantum Leap. We've got a new Quantum Leap. I don't know if it's still going, but I think the last episode it was a cliffhanger, so I'm hoping there's another season of that. The one that I think comes closest to kind of the heart of Voyagers was the one that was called Timeless. It was a couple years ago, and I think the pandemic kind of messed it up, and that's where they kind of lost because a lot of shows just ended.
Was that the CBS show?
I think NBC. It was CBS.
What was it? NBC.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah, I remember that show coming out because it had an actress I really like. She played Scotty on the show Suits.
Right.
Okay. Yep. Gotcha. But I love the fact that it was kind of we got to fix the things that are wrong, and it was very much it was basically like giving Phineas Fogg an away team.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, and there was almost to a T. You've got one character who's the bad guy who also has the ability to time travel because he's got the backup device. So it was very similar to the one, and they were, rivals at the same time. So, and they knew about each other. And so it's a very kind of clear, homage, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know that it could be done today with, the man and his son, or the man and a boy, or kind of a thing. Because I think that now we have so many. In the 80s, there was no cell phone. There was no computers. There were that didn't exist. So it wasn't something that they could. Could
now you would just download your Omni app.
Right. Even if the council was outside of time, they would still know that all these things existed, and they would have to incorporate that kind of technology. And I think that's that's the part of the show that is perfect, is that the fact that Jeffrey is the book.
Yep. Yeah.
Jeffrey is he is necessary because of Bog's lack of information. And if you did it today, that's the problem. There wouldn't be a fix where Jeffrey would be required.
And also with Jeffrey, it's not so much the book, because Bog would read the book, try and figure out how to force the issue to fix time.
Right.
Jeffrey brings the human component of understanding the
Sure.
issue, right? So like this kind of thing, like just being able to persuade Thomas Edison, it's like literally like him being upset, and then Thomas Edison trying to calm him down, grabs Jeffrey's sleeve, looks at the thread, and says, "Eureka! I got it." Like that's the solve, and it happens. You're like, is that how it was supposed to happen? Is that how you right the wrong? Yeah, it's like that was brilliant, right?
Yeah.
Because of something that was just accidental. It fixed time to get him back to Bog. Like he didn't care about the light bulb going off. He cared that his best friend was gone, and like, how do I get back to him? Right.
Yeah.
So the just the level of emotional byplay, it was just fantastic in that show.
Yeah.
And
I also want to mention that
go ahead, Lacee.
I also want to mention that we had not one but two pre-90210 stars,
right?
As well, for like Shannon Doherty was in it, and Luke Perry was in it. They both had Shannon Doherty had actual lines, but Luke Perry had an uncredited cameo kind of situation. So, and you've got Cameron Dye, you've got just so many people that ended up going on to do like amazing, huge thing, fun things. So yeah.
The amount of historical people they actually, I was looking at the list of how many historical people they met throughout the first season. And it's a laundry list. I'd be here for 3 hours trying to go through it. But guys, I want to talk about Voyagers canceled too soon. Maybe the original Firefly here in a way, because this was actually a very loved show. And it ran from one season of 20 episodes, broadcast opposite 60 Minutes. Again, Norman, you brought this up at the beginning of the show. One of the worst time slots in history. NBC aired it opposite 60 Minutes. It averaged a 17 share, which in these days is quite something with all the streaming models. But back then, Voyager seemed likely to be renewed for a second season, but the controversies in 60 Minutes reporting led executives believe that 60 Minutes might successfully be challenged by a competing news program instead. NBC canceled Voyagers instead of just moving it to a different night, mind you, and replaced it with the news magazine program Monitor, which only averaged a 7 share.
And we're talking about Monitor today because we're not.
Yeah.
Right.
Even more interesting, that wasn't actually the end of Voyagers per se, because later on there was a TV movie entitled Voyager from the Unknown. In 1985, following the death of John Eric Hexum, Universal re-edited several episodes of the show into a television film entitled Voyager from the Unknown. The story combined the pilot episode and Voyagers of the Titanic into one feature-length film. This version incorporates new video special effects, some voice overdubbing for Hexum and Pelusi's characters that changed, and added dialogue and new footage, including a supercomputer directing Voyager missions. The opening begins with the narration and painted illustrations of Bog receiving his guidebook on Planet Voyager by artist Jerry Gerber. And this is kind of the voiceover. Far out in the cosmos, there exists a planet known as Voyager. When the mystery of travel into space and through time has been solved, it is inhabited by a race who call themselves Voyagers. Their purpose is to keep consistent surveillance on history. These people have a time machine device, the Omni, which will take them into the past, present, or future. As each Voyager graduates, he is giving an Omni and a guidebook. One such graduate, Phineas Bogg, who was assigned as a field worker to operate in certain time zones. So now, actually wasn't until I actually dove into the research. I was never aware that they actually made a made-for-TV movie of this.
It was the Uber clip show. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, basically, that's what it was. But, guys, I truly do believe this might be one of the first times in at least our lifetimes where we had a show canceled way too soon and probably never deserved to be canceled in the first place. And this is really when you want to slap around a few television executives, Norman.
It's hard to kind of like put yourselves into their place. I don't know what they were up against. That's interesting. The cover of that is that's one of the better marketing pieces. It's hard to say like what they were going up against. They probably had to shake some stuff up. It was end of the year, they're looking at budgets. But at the same time, though, they really had a really good relationship with what was going on with Scholastic, and you could have run way more books, for kids that are growing up with this show. the demographic was right. So you're going to get that, age group going from like 10 to 15 to 17. Again, John Eric Hexum, he crossed a lot of demographics. He wasn't just brawn, he was brains too. And he was very charming. He had just the leading man, everything. And it was smart. We haven't talked about this yet, but Phineas Fogg is actually playing on Phineas Fogg, who was the main character in Around the World in 80 Days. So, now you're bringing in like this classic literature into this. The same thing with Jules Verne's Time Waits for No Man. That is inscribed on the Omni, both Omnis, his and Drake's. So there were a lot of smart details in this. And the more you watch it, the more you see those details, because again, the pairings of like the different time travel characters, you would put like, again, Harriet Tubman, and whoever they were paired with at the time, and then all the little cross characters in between in the same episode. I would love to be in the writer's room. Like, hey, what if we did this? What if we, you had Billy the Kid and Teddy Roosevelt, right? Mm-hmm. And the reason why Teddy Roosevelt wasn't president is because Billy the Kid shot him, because Teddy Roosevelt, he mouthed off to him in a stagecoach. That's brilliant. Right. You don't get that. You get more, again, you have a little bit more of a jaded kind of edgy, caustic type of storytelling nowadays, even when it comes to time travel. Right. I mean, I love Doctor Who, but my Doctor Who character in era was Tom Baker. The reason why, because there's an innocence to the Rubber Monster era. You don't focus on the hardness of it, you focus on the fun of it. And that's this. It was fun. Like you said, Kyle, it was wholesome. It wasn't out to like set an agenda or make a, spiel a message, except for one. If you want to learn more about history, take a voyage down to your local library. It's all in books. How positive a message is that for a kid?
Yep.
Yeah, Lacey.
This show aired when I was in 4th grade. In 4th grade, I did an art project where I had to create, I had to do a book report or a report on a famous character, and I chose Annie Oakley. And I still, like, not even 2 years ago in my parents' attic, I was going through something and I found the old Dawn dish bottle that I did paper mache around and painted as Annie Oakley, and I chose her because I watched this show. I mean, this show, all of the reports that I did that year, all of the books that I chose were historically, because any sort of, we had monthly book reports we had to do and all this kind of stuff when I was in 4th grade. And I picked things because they were interesting to me because of Voyagers. My 4th grade, I did well in 4th grade because of this show. It engaged me to a point where I wanted to learn more. And then I actively took those things and took them to school to do the projects that I was supposed to do. Like, This is a good show. It was really well done.
And that's the thing about the show. And I'm curious if you guys felt this way. When I'm watching these episodes now, I'm like, this show would have back in the day thrived on like PBS. Like, you put it in that educational block with all that, this show would have thrived. And that's what's so amazing about this show. And I know we're running a little long, and I know I need to wrap this up, but this is taking a moment of time. And even with it being a time travel show, it's just this moment in time that eclipses the show and everything about it. Just, if you, especially again, being the ages we are on this show, and this is something, if I had a child myself, I'd want to share with them, because I would want them to experience something that affected me so greatly at that age. And yet I think it still to this day would be beneficial for them. And I mean, that's the crazy part about the show. This show could do so much even in today's society. And again, you wonder what happens if John Eric Hexum lives. Did somebody try to bring this show back? I think this is a show that at the end of the day, if it would have been in the age of the internet, it probably would have been brought back, much like a Jericho or a Firefly in some fashion or another, because there would have been such an outrageous pouring of fandom coming into the studios.
If this had been released in the early 2000s, we would have a comic book series, we would have novelizations, like full on. We would have so much. There would be so much content. This podcast would be a series.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it is a moment in time that was captured, and I don't think that it could be done. I just don't think it can be done again today.
Yeah. Norman, you have been our special guest on this episode. I want to let you get in the last word on Voyagers here.
Well, I think that if you're interested in what we've been talking about, definitely pick up the DVD set, because it's the only thing in Voyagers right now that's a licensed product that you're going to be able to find. That's and the one that Lacey has held up in the screen. That's the one to buy, because it does have a full picture of the Omni, picture of obviously Phineas and Jeffrey, the guidebook / DVD holder case, because that's what his guidebook essentially looked like, leather bound. Look at that. I mean, it's a great clamshell presentation. You have all of the episodes on the back, descriptions of the titles and things like that. So for $15 to $20, online, it's the only really way to watch it. You don't want to like try and like scavenge, bits and pieces here and there on the internet. I love this show because it reminds me of, and I don't want to sound like the old man yelling at clouds, but it just reminds me of a simpler time when entertainment was made for a very specific, wholesome purpose. It was there to entertain. This one has the ability to educate, but it just had so much heart. You could feel it right down to your guts when you feel this show. When you watch this show, you know that you're just watching something special. And as much as I would like to see it redone, I almost don't. I want this encapsulated in time, and we have the DVDs to preserve that. But you don't get to see this again, right?
Yeah.
That makes it magic. It makes it special, right? That if you want to watch it now, you have to invest the time to watch it and enjoy it and absorb it and make it part of you, right? This is a part of our history, not just like history, but our fandom history, when things were not as competitive and not as edgy and not as coarse and not as dark. I mean, there was like this brightness, there's a lightness, there's an inspirational quality to the show. And at the end of the day, you feel good about actually watching TV. Imagine that, So thank you for having me on. Lacey, it was just great to hear your memories of it. Kyle, you too. But as you can see, like it just forged such a deep connection in my life.
Yeah.
And I don't think that I can say that with a lot of things, even that I'm a big fan of, because I just remember how connected I was to it when it came out and still am. So that's something special, and you should cherish that.
Yeah. And I'm so glad you were able to be a part of this show, Norman, because I know how much this show means to you. But on that note, guys, we are going to wrap up this episode of Culture Clash. Again, this has been Culture Clash Live, covering Voyagers as part of our time travel spotlight. But a quick look ahead to our next episode. Lacey, you're going to be joining me, and we're going to do a little save from oblivion with a movie that you picked, and that is the 2010 film Skyline, which has a very interesting cast in it, a very interesting plot, but never really took off, yet it has spawned a number of sequels, believe it or not. And I think this is going to be a very interesting conversation. And again, this movie, its lead is one of your favorite underrated actors, the one Eric Balfour. Lacey,
love Eric Balfour. Love Eric Balfour.
Yeah.
This is the cutting edge of science fiction films. Cutting Edge was like a great movie, and there's like 5 sequels to it that no one's heard of.
Yeah,
and
okay.
this is the science fiction version of that.
So we're going to see if this movie should be saved from oblivion. In ways it has been, in ways maybe not so much, but we'll get into that. But you have been watching or listening to Culture Clash Live on the Fandom Podcast, and we're both on our YouTube channel. And of course, you can find us on our audio page at fpnet.podbean.com or on all those great podcast catchers out there, whether it's iTunes, Amazon, iHeartRadio, Spotify, so many great ones. And it's always so great to get with our fans. Of course, you can find me too, Kyle, on the Fandom Podcast Network on our Facebook page. You can find me on X or Twitter or whatever you want to call it at AKyleW. You can also find me on Discord at AKyleW, and you can find me on Instagram and Threads at AKyleFandom. Lacey, we know you're all over the place, including here at the Fandom Podcast Network with Time Warp and Couch Potato Theaters and everything like that. Where can people find you on socials?
Anywhere there's a social, I am at Lacey Pants. Discord, Letterboxd, Facebook, everything except for Instagram. Instagram, I have a the at the beginning, the Lacey Pants. And that's because I accidentally locked myself out of at Lacey Pants.
Of course.
I can't figure out how to get back into it.
That'll happen. Norman, as you're kind of getting back behind the mic, I've been so busy myself, and of course, I was a little bit more affected by Hurricane Milton than some. I know you've done at least a episode here and there of Mission Log. Are you going to be returning to the Trek Airways over there at Roddenberry soon?
Yeah, I've been able to actually get a couple in the can. So as soon as I can get a little bit more of a stable schedule, I'll be doing a lot more recording. But I am back behind the mic. We've actually recorded and are starting. We'll finish the end of the 5th season of Voyager, and starting with the 6th season, doing the 2-parter Equinox 1 and 2. I'm sorry, I didn't introduce myself in that way. So I'm the co-host of Mission Log, a Roddenberry Star Trek podcast, along with John Champion, my co-host. And we are covering every single episode of Star Trek in broadcast order, if you haven't seen us there. So you can always find us at podcast.roddenberry.com. And that's what I'm doing right now. I haven't really gotten back into the other shows, but I have also guest starred on one of our special shows called Mission Log Genealogy, where we go through every single episode of Gene Roddenberry's writing before he started Star Trek.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Cool.
And those have been fantastic episodes. And Norman, we anywhere you go, we're going to listen to you. But more importantly, too, no matter where Norman is at, whether it's with Roddenberry or somewhere else on his own projects, his home is here. He always knows he has a home right here with us. He's one of our co-founders, and we love him. And anytime we can get him on the mic with us, we consider it special time. And hopefully in 2025, we will get Norman back on the Fandom Podcast Network here, making an appearance or two. I might even drag him back onto a certain show about Immortals to make an appearance.
I just restarted my watch again, so you never know.
You never know. You might recruit him back into the Watchers before it's all said and done. But again, Norman, thank you for making the time.
Sure, of course.
I love you, brother. You know that. Lacey, as always, we love having you on, giving us the Queen of Movie Flu. But we are going to wrap this thing up. We have done this thing, and with that, as always, as we like to say here at Culture Clash and the Fandom Podcast Network, respect each other, and most importantly, enjoy your fandom. We have done this thing, and we are out of here.